All right, folks, welcome to day 2 of the Big O from Eugene, Oregon. My name is Phil Dirt. I'm here with Bulldog.
How y'all doing?
And we've got Tucson Roller Derby Saddle Tramps versus the Auld Reekie Roller Girls Twisted Thistles. First bout of day 2 here on track 1. Thank you all for joining us. WFTDA.tv. Should be one heck of a bout. Who do we got out there? Who do we got out there, Bulldog?
We're just about ready to get started, but first we're going to run down the rosters. For skating for the Tucson Saddle Tramps, we got number 10, Cosmonauty, number 13, Blaxican Bomber, number 1337, Raffle Copter, number 24, Midnight Crasher, number 26, Runnin' Heidi, number 3, Pinky McLovin, number 33, Pixie Axe, number 36, Hudson Hornet, number 37, Death Proof, number 4, N6, Bone Eata, number 717, Mystery Meat, number 77, Judo Nomi, number 86, Dirty Duchess, and number 9, Emasculator.
For Auld Reekie Twisted Thistles, we have number 11, Crazy Legs, 1111, Admiral Attack Bar, 16, Velocity 2, Kiki Pearson, 264, Pope John Brawl, number 3, Cinderella, 34, Double Destruction, 39, Ying and Bang, 626, Lilo and Stitches, 66, Mo Be Quick, 7, Mini Riot, 85, Skinner Alive, 87, Caitlin Carroll, and 893, Bent Imperial. Should be one good bout today, Bulldog. I know Auld Reekie lost yesterday to Arizona, but also lost at a less of a difference than Tucson lost to Arizona back at the Dust Devil earlier this year.
Tucson, on the other hand, had 2 victories yesterday. First over Silicon Valley, a decisive victory, and then another over Humboldt. Humboldt came on strong in the first half early on. Then Tucson managed to get several really big jams, pulled way ahead, and never lost the lead after that. Humboldt did fight a good fight, but Tucson overpowered them in the end.
So I think our keys to the game are going to be your standard keys for most of the bouts we watched so far this weekend. Stay out of the penalty box, get lead jammer. Those are the big things we'll be looking for both of these teams. Of course, if your team's in the penalty box, you can't put points on the board. And lead jammer in today's roller derby, most important thing, get some points, shut it down, control the tempo of the game. Looks like we'll have to Testosterone Jeremy as our head ref.
We have our first bout on track 1, IMHG Showcraft.
We'll get started here momentarily. We're glad you all could join us early in the morning or late in the evening or whatever time it is wherever you are.
All of the bathrobes. All right.
You know, I think that's what separates roller derby from most sports, because the key to winning in roller derby is to score lots of points and keep your opponent from scoring.
It's much different than the Mad Magazine board game where you were trying to lose all your money.
That's an excellent point. I'd never thought about that before, I can honestly say.
What's that one where they put the little white ball in the tiny little hole? Golf, yeah. Here you want big scores.
Number 3, Pinky McLovin. 33, Pixie Axe. 36, Hudson Hornet.
Very involved captains coaches meeting to start this off with our head referee.
717, Mystery Meat.
I think he got a haircut, actually.
That could be it.
Number 86, Dirty Duchess, and number 9.
Discussing the best mousse to use that goes with stripes.
What product to use? How slimming are these stripes?
Now, Auld Reekie, actually, I believe they are the furthest traveled of all the teams that have shown up here this weekend. We've also got Kokeshi Roller Derby the Kokeshi Roller Dolls from Japan.
A lot of teams coming a very long way to get here. Been a great tournament so far. A lot of very interesting bouts. already this weekend.
Yeah, if this tournament had been on the East Coast, which is not, but if it had been on the East Coast, then I think the Japan League would have been the furthest traveled.
Yes, they would have won the prize hands down. We're very happy to have Auld Reekie. We're glad the whole world is coming at the Big O.
That's right. Yeah, Auld Reekie is from Edinburgh, Scotland. Now, in case we hadn't covered that, or in case it wasn't obvious. But,
Tucson is from Tucson,
Arizona.
Yes,
Arizona.
Arizona. That's right. First bout of the Big O. Waiting to get started here. Seen some interesting things. We got a lot of A teams and B teams here, brother and sister leagues, junior leagues from the same organization. Great tournament so far. Big O has to be one of my favorite tournaments year in, year out so far. Just the amount of different teams coming from all over the world.
We've got juniors today, we've got women's, we also have some men's action on tracks 1, 2, and 3. And we appreciate all the earlies that made it down to track 1 before the 9 a.m. start.
I believe he's actually explaining the rules through interpretive dance at this point.
I will say, Bulldog, one thing I've seen called a lot at this tournament, I haven't seen called that often before, a lot of blocking with the head.
Yes, indeed.
It is a penalty, of course. I just haven't seen it called. Yesterday in the Philadelphia versus Rose City B team bout, there were at least 4 blocking with the head calls on jammers in the first half.
Yeah, and you probably should go ahead and explain the distinction between blocking with the head and blocking in high block or blocking to the head.
Yeah, they were using their head to gain an advantage, usually by pressing their head into someone else's midsection and using it to get by, thus taking their position with their noggin. You can't do that. You got to go sit down 30 seconds.
Yeah, and the other distinction is it's how the block is initiated.
Yes, you've initiated that block with your head to get the other person out of the way, or you've speared them.
Right. So if one skater's head makes contact with an opponent's body, any body part other than the head, then if it is determined that the person hitting with the person's head initiated the contact, as opposed to the other skater's body initiating contact to the head.
Right.
Then the first is a blocking with the head, the other is a blocking to the head or a high block.
All right, clear as mud for everyone in the audience.
Would you like to explain it a third time?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Audience? All right, thank you. I hope they're up to 7.4 right now, I believe. Tossed Ron Jeremy.
I want to remind everyone this morning about the importance of being respectful not only to our officiating staff, but also our volunteers. They're volunteers, meaning they do not get paid a lot of money, but they love their games. So let's be nice. All the volunteers and officials, maybe even photographers, I haven't decided yet.
Yes, thank you for all that you do. This wouldn't be possible without you.
We said yesterday over 100 officials just to run the 3 tracks.
If this meeting goes much longer, I think we might end up with a dance-off. It all depends on what music they play.
It's true.
Over the sound system.
We do have DJ Meow here, and he's been spinning the wheels of steel all weekend. Fantastic. It's true. So Auld Reekie comes in ranked 97th. Tucson comes in ranked 56th. But Auld Reekie had closer score to Arizona than Tucson was close to Arizona. So this could be a huge bout for Auld Reekie's rankings. Oh my goodness, the meeting's over.
That was an official sounding whistle.
Right on. Sounded like a Fox 40 to me.
And it looks like we're ready to get started. First up on the jammer line for Auld Reekie is Admiral Attack Bar, number 1111, against number 33, Pixie Axe of Tucson. Tucson in the black jerseys, Auld Reekie in the green jerseys. Pixie Axe at the front against a two-wall, Crazy Legs and Velocity managed to knock down Pixie Axe. And Admiral Attack Bar finding the outside lane gets lead jammer for Auld Reekie in the first jam. Pixie Axe scrambles past a fallen Auld Reekie skater. I believe that was a Velocity, and gets out of the back, but about a half a lap behind Admiral Attack Bar. Admiral Attack Bar on her first scoring pass. Tucson pushing the pace. They've lost one blocker. Looks like there's Raffle Copter in the penalty box. But Admiral Attack Bar is only going to get partway through, gets one pass plus a ghost point, and calls off the jam. But Auld Reekie first on the board with 2. Tucson still at 0.
Good blocking to start this off for Auld Reekie. Good triangle 3-wall up in front, really containing Tucson's jammers early on. Tucson's going to have to try and come out strong, get some lead jammers of their own here as we go into the second jam.
Bint Imperial jamming for Auld Reekie against this Mystery Meat, number 717, finds the outside lane. All attention was focused on Bint Imperial on the inside lane. Wide open outside lane for Mystery Meat to get through. Now Tucson has lead jammer. Bint Imperial forced out of bounds, has to recycle as Mystery Meat hits the pack on her first scoring pass, gets repelled by Ciderella, comes back in. Now the outside gets around Yin and Bang. And now a quick move just gets past Mini Riot, gets cut off by Skinner Alive, but calls off the jam. Mystery Meat picking up 4 for Tucson, and doesn't allow any points by Auld Reekie.
Good work by Tucson, controlling the pack at the beginning of that, forcing all attention to the inside, left a giant outside lane, easy lead jammer, then fighting into the pack. Good call off, no points for Auld Reekie. Tucson now up 4-2.
Tucson down a blocker, Judo Nomi in the penalty box. And we've got Death Proof, number 37, jamming for Tucson against Lilo and Stitches of Auld Reekie. Lilo and Stitches has a forward position, gets forced out of bounds by Pinky McLovin and Blaxican Bomber. Up front, we've got Auld Reekie 3-wall, Moby Quick, and Velocity coming across with his shoulder, getting Death Proof to the ground.
Crazy Legs getting sent off multiplayer block.
That means it's a 3-on-3 pack, and Death Proof of Tucson able to get out and gets lead jammer in the third jam. So far that's 2 lead jams for Tucson, 1 for Auld Reekie. Here comes Lilo and Stitches also getting out. But Death Proof goes sliding. She did not even make contact and went down, so she must have stumbled, but that drove her into the legs of the Auld Reekie skaters.
Came in hot to the pack, and the pack was trying to slow down, tripped up, wind up making leg contact, knocking one of the Auld Reekie skaters down, still sits it down for 30 seconds, power jam.
And that also negates that lead jammer. So right now, effectively, that is 1 lead jammer apiece with Lilo and Stitches on the power jam. Already has 1 grand slam for Auld Reekie. Now coming around again on her second scoring pass. Blaxican Bomber swept out of the way by Crazy Legs, so Lilo and Stitches gets up 2-wall. Cosmonauti and Pinky McLovin have to back off at 20 feet. And it's another grand slam, 10 points so far, but that's the end of the power jam. Death Proof, the jammer for Tucson, back in action and on her first scoring pass. But Lilo and Stitches now on her third scoring pass, slams into Judo Nomi, but hits the shoulder blade. It's a clean hit, but Judo Nomi gets her revenge, comes back in. But Judo Nomi thought that Lilo and Stitches was behind her, but
she turned to face to go around the other direction. Lilo and Stitches saw that, stepped in, hips behind, shot back into play. No penalty, no cut.
So Lilo and Stitches still in action. Death Proof still on her first scoring pass. We're meeting a stiff resistance of Velocity and Crazy Legs. That double wall holding her to only 1 scoring pass. She does get all 4, but Lilo and Stitches gets 4 on her third scoring pass, so a 14-4 jam for Auld Reekie.
Auld Reekie's Crazy Legs with a giant hit at the end of that, knocking down Death Proof, and the time expires, but just a huge hit. Very impressed with Crazy Legs so far early in this bout.
Some very strong defenders on the Auld Reekie squad, yes indeed. Velocity and Yin and Bang actually is someone I've seen at the home leagues. This is the first time I've seen her on their All-Star team, but I'm expecting big things from her. Also Minnie Riot, a member of Team Scotland from back in 2011, if you remember that far back.
It's hazy.
Admiral Attack Bar finds the line, gets lead jammer, but Runnin' Heidi, number 26, the jammer for Tucson, not far behind, only about 3 or 4 strides behind Admiral Attack Bar.
A lot of contact going on in the pack with no jammers. Seeing Tucson players, now down to 2.
Emasculator and Dirty Duchess in the penalty box for Tucson. So that gives a big offensive advantage to Auld Reekie in this next jam. So far, Auld Reekie has not gotten a lot of penalties.
Auld Reekie, though, only getting 2 while there's 2 Saddle Tramps in the penalty box. See if the bench catches that. They should be getting at least 3. 2 lead jammers for each team at this point. And we've got 18-8, so very close right now.
Caitlin O'Carroll jamming for Auld Reekie against that is a mystery meat again. Mystery meat. She has that arm tape on her left shoulder that looks very similar to Runnin' Heidi's bandaging.
That's the 3rd lead jammer now for Auld Reekie versus just 2 for Tucson, and one of those going away due to the power jam.
That's right. So Auld Reekie so far dominating the lead jammer, but it's very early in the game. And there goes Caitlin O'Carroll. Only 1 blocker on the track. That is Rafflecopter for Tucson. All 4 of the Auld Reekie skaters easily swept her aside, and Caitlin O'Carroll moves through untouched with a wide berth.
Yeah,
4 points for Auld Reekie.
1 will get you 4 in that case, Bulldog. Definitely the giant pack advantage. Tucson having some penalty trouble early. They're going to have to try and get that under control to take control of this game. They do come in much higher ranked than Auld Reekie, and I'm sure standings have already been changed here at the Big O.
Lilo and Stitches jamming for Auld Reekie. But Pixie Axe fights her way past Skinner Alive and Minnie Riot to get lead jammer. Lilo and Stitches facing some trouble. With Tucson actually having blockers on the track, Auld Reekie's having a harder time getting their jammer through. Go figure.
Weird.
Pixie Axe makes short work of her first scoring pass, getting past Velocity and Skinner Alive. They looked a little bit disoriented, actually. So, and we're struggling a little bit right now on this jam. They've been very strong previously, but Pixie Axe on her second scoring pass. This time, Minnie Riot and Velocity able to slow down and stop Pixie Axe, forcing her to call it off before Lilo and Stitches can get in. 2 more on that second scoring pass.
Yeah, Tucson having a lot easier time when they can keep their blockers on the track. Even with these new 30-second penalties, when you're down players, they're still down players. So you can't let the jammer or the penalties pile up. So far, Tucson has done so, and it's why they're behind 22-15.
Death Proof on the jammer line for Tucson. And Admiral Attack Bar, number 1111, jamming for Auld Reekie. She's gotten lead jammer every time she's jammed so far, and this looks like no exception. 3rd time jamming, 3rd time lead jammer for Auld Reekie. Death Proof, she's the one who got lead jammer and then got sent to the box, but this time gets past clean, getting past double destruction of Auld Reekie.
Great defensive work by Auld Reekie. Oh!
Little hop across the infield, and Admiral Attack Bar secures another 4 points for Auld Reekie.
4-point apex jump. Nice and clean, no doubt about that one.
Difference early. Both teams waiting for that 5-second countdown.
Admiral Attack Bar again with 100% lead jammer out there. I believe she's been out for 3 and got 3 up and 3.
Bint Imperial gets lead jammer for Auld Reekie. Runnin' Heidi trying to get past Skinner Alive and Minnie Riot, but they are holding strong. Skinner Alive inverted, driving that shoulder into the sternum of Runnin' Heidi. The Runnin' Heidi finally squeezes past, only to run into Caitlin O'Carroll and Yin and Bang. Yin and Bang and Skinner Alive now double teaming. There's Bint Imperial on her first scoring pass at the back of the pack for Auld Reekie. Squeezes past Bonita, and Minnie Riot opening up the outside lane for Bint Imperial to complete the pass. 4 points, Auld Reekie.
Big pile up. Good defense to offense by Auld Reekie right there. containing the Tucson jammer and then still helping their jammer get through. The transition game, very important.
And the worst ever longtime supporter of the Emerald City.
Lilo and Stitches jamming for Auld Reekie once again, and that is, I believe, Mystery Meat, number 717. She fights her way through. Mystery Meat has been the consistent lead jammer for Tucson so far. Lilo and Stitches forced out of bounds, has to recycle a little bit as Mystery Meat sneaks past Ciderella. Ciderella saw her, but a shade, just a fraction of a second too late. A grand slam for Tucson. Lilo and Stitches trying to get out, but Dirty Duchess and Rafflecopter slowing her down. A Rafflecopter on point, holding back Lilo and Stitches, and Dirty Duchess comes across with a shoulder check as Mystery Meat, the jammer for Tucson, whizzes by, getting a second grand slam.
Auld Reekie all set up at the back of the pack, a big wall. Tries the apex jump but misses. That's the first Tucson lead jammer in 3 jams. But no points picked up on that second pass.
It was a 10-point jam, though. 2 grand slams prior to that one. That brings Tucson to only 5 points behind Auld Reekie.
Tucson there, and that takes her score to 25.
Great off defensive work so far by Tucson in that last jam, able to contain the jammer.
3 jams.
Great bridging action on that.
But Tucson starting out 1 blocker in the penalty box, as they've also done that very consistently. Death Proof jamming against Admiral Attack Bar, and Admiral Attack Bar picking up lead jammer yet again. She is on a streak every time she's jammed so far as she's gotten lead jammer. Death Proof just a little bit behind Admiral Attack Bar. Admiral Attack Bar signaling to her teammates to speed it up, and she gets past 1 opposing blocker, calls it off, so a 1-0 jam. Still a positive scoring differential.
Definitely hitting it and quitting it. Sometimes the best way to do it. You can nickel your dime your way to success, and that's what Auld Reekie did that last jam.
Also, you can also penny your way to.
No,
you can't.
No, you can't. They've taken that option away. That was in the new rule set.
All the skaters on the track, we've got 10.
Bint Imperial on the line again for Auld Reekie. Pixie Axe moving up the outside lane. Oh, dodges past Yin and Bang. Yin and Bang tried to close the door, but Pixie Axe picks up lead jammer. Bint Imperial fights off Pinky McLovin, the last line of defense for Tucson, but about half a lap behind Pixie Axe. Pixie Axe runs into a 4-wall, now drops off to a 2-wall. It's Moby Quick and Caitlin O'Carroll forcing her out of bounds. She calls off the jam, but
That's a wash. Good hustle there.
3-on-3 in that last jam.
Yeah, to double check that. There was 3 points for Auld Reekie.
Tucson doing a good job controlling the pack at the beginning, getting their jammer out. Looked like Auld Reekie was a little confused trying to help their jammer and then weren't sure whether to stop the opposing jammer or help theirs. Wound up doing neither.
Mystery Meat once again, almost forced out of bounds by Velocity, but she jukes to the outside lane, gets past Pope John Brawl, scrambles with crazy legs, but manages to get out. So Mystery Meat seems to, and this is Admiral Attack Bar. First time Admiral Attack Bar did not get lead jammer. Mystery Meat, I believe, has gotten lead jammer every single time she's jammed for Tucson. So it was bound to break the streak one way or the other on this jam.
A little contact after the whistle there, but nobody fall down. So each team with 6 lead jammers right now, and that's why we wind up 30-34.
Okay, Mystery Meat got 2 points on that jam, but looks like it's being corrected to 3 points. So yeah, the Mystery Meat was questioning that, not officially, but with body language.
The raised shoulders, hands splayed out to the side, and that look on their face.
It was a shrug, yes, but it was the ghost point. Moby Quick was in the penalty box for Auld Reekie. Death Proof getting around Skinner Alive and Mini Riot to claim lead jammer. This is her second time getting lead jammer, but as you might recall, the first time she got sent to the penalty box, so was not able to execute. But now on her first scoring pass, Bint Imperial for Auld Reekie still on her initial pass. But Death Proof triple teamed by Mini Riot, Moby Quick, and Skinner Alive. They force her out of bounds, and she calls off the jam. Bint Imperial did not even get into a scoring position.
Bint Imperial got hit to the outside and then came back. I don't think she realized that every blocker that had knocked her out and ran backwards had also stepped out of bounds, therefore becoming null. But better safe than sorry in giving up the power jam. That's 3 leads after that last in a row. Lead jammers for Tucson. And now we've got a tie game at 34 all.
Lilo and Stitches on the jammer line for Auld Reekie.
4-3
Run
pack
Heidi.
advantage.
Run in Heidi, number 26, jamming for Tucson, but she's stuck behind a 3-wall. Velocity, Pope John Brawl, and Crazy Legs holding her in place. But Lilo and Stitches up front. Double Destruction trying to help out her jammer. She cracks open a little bit of a hole. Now it's a 2-wall in front. It's a Judo Nomi and Blaxican Bomber, but Lilo and Stitch is able to fight her way through and gets lead jammer.
Great work. Crazy Legs and Double Destruction popping their jammer free until there was only one more blocker to beat. Then they let her have it, went back on defense. Great transition game by Auld Reekie.
And another pennying their way to victory. No, that's 1 point picked up by Lilo and Stitches, but she does keep Tucson from scoring.
And 1 red cent.
Red centing.
A euro cent.
Which is actually 1.5 cents, if I remember correctly.
I think math. Sports.
I can. That's German for squirrel.
7 leads each right now. They keep changing that back and forth, and we've practically got a tie game.
Mystery Meat jamming for Tucson, stuck at the back of the back end. Admiral Attack Bar gets revenge, now breaking Mystery Meat's streak of lead jammers.
Now each of them down 1 lead jammer. Other than that, they've been pretty much perfect on that angle.
Admiral Attack Bar, gets to the inside so narrowly. She was just barely still stepping on the line, almost got a cutting the track. I think one of the referees was looking specifically at that, but she managed to call off the jam, secured the differential, only 2 points, but keeps Tucson from scoring.
Auld Reekie taking the timeout right now, making sure they check up everything is right. I got to say, Tucson been doing a better job staying out of the box and started off the game going to the box, giving up a lot of points that way, but have managed to get it under control. Now going at about the same rate as Auld Reekie. Auld Reekie with the narrowest of leads. But we have pretty equal on the lead jammer stats.
Also for any Auld Reekie fans, or more importantly, any Auld Reekie members who are watching, Zilla is here today. She's a former member of the Thistles, but now had to move back to her hometown of Victoria, BC. But she wanted to say hello.
Hello.
She's sitting in the stands. If you happen to see, she's sitting in the stands wearing an Auld Reekie t-shirt. But she sends her love to all the Auld Reekie fans, all the Auld Reekie skaters who aren't here today. And, of course, is cheering for the ones on the track.
Of course. Empty penalty box to start this off. We'll get the full 5-on-5. See if that timeout can improve things for Auld Reekie.
Death Proof jamming for Tucson. Busts her way right up the center, getting around Pope John Brawl. But no! She got a back block penalty, so it looked so exciting, but in the end, she goes to the penalty box. It's a power jam for Caitlin O'Carroll, who busts through for lead jammer.
That's going to explain how she was able to pop through that pack quite so quickly. Back block will do that.
That will indeed. Sometimes it's that effective. Now on her first scoring pass, Caitlin O'Carroll running into a 3-wall. It's a Bonita, Judo Nomi, and Cosmonauti. Holding her back, Cosmonauti drops back the bridge, and Bonita and Judo Nomi can't hold her back. Caitlin O'Carroll opting to call off the jam, settles for a nickel.
She did take a really big hit there at the beginning of that pass from Bonita. Currently, Lilo and Stitches with 15 points leading the way. Mystery Meat 17, and then Admiral Attack Bar and Pixie with 11 and 10 respectively.
Score now 42 for Auld Reekie, 34 for Tucson with just under 12 minutes remaining in the first half. Admiral Attack Bar starting on the jammer line by herself. Death Proof standing in the box at the first whistle. Admiral Attack Bar, the jammer for Auld Reekie. Up the outside, gets past Rafflecopter and Bonita. Bonita stumbling as Admiral Attack Bar barges past. Gets lead jammer. So again, Admiral Attack Bar only one time jamming where she didn't get lead jammer. Attempts a jump across the infield but fails, lands outside, but it crawls to safety, recycling properly. But now Death Proof completing her initial pass and on her way to try and match some points for Admiral Attack Bar, but Admiral Attack Bar is not going to let that happen. Calls off the jam, but again, only getting 1 point.
Great transition work by the Auld Reekie skaters. Stopping the jammer when the jammer finally is able to get through for Tucson. They go immediately to trying to help Admiral Attack Bar get some points on the board, but only picking up that one.
I need to ask Mr. Havoc, is this the uniform?
So Auld Reekie's still pecking up points. Just a couple here, a few here, one there. Doing a great job, though.
So far, a very closely fought game. Now, Auld Reekie has gone 3 jams without allowing a score by Tucson. So it was tied at 34 points just a couple of minutes ago, or maybe 3 or 4 minutes ago. But now Pixie Axe trying to change that, running into a 4-wall. Now a 2-wall, Ciderella and Pope John brawl. Crazy Legs moving up to make it a 3-wall. They're trying to hold back Pixie Axe, while Bint Imperial, the jammer for Auld Reekie, trying to get past the Tucson defense at the back of the pack. Double Destruction trying to pop a hole, and Bint Imperial finds the opening. A lot of help from Double Destruction, but no, she doesn't. She gets it cutting the track.
I believe she went outside of Pinky McLovin, just stepped across that line, so this is going to be a power jam. Oh, no, it's not. It's going to be a 1-in, 1-out.
That's right, very short penalties. Bint Imperial got the cutting, but Pixie Axe got a similar, I didn't see the other penalty, but got a penalty at almost the exact same time.
Both jammers enter, both jammers leave.
And neither team gets lead jammer. Both got disqualified when they went to the penalty box. But Bint Imperial pirouettes around Rafflecopter. Juno Nomi tries to stop her but falls down, and Bint Imperial picking up the 4. Pixie Axe on a matching score pass for the first time. Now, but Bint Imperial laps her now, potentially 5 points, weaves her way past the Tucson defense. Last point of contact was Judo Nomi, unable to stop her, and it's a grand slam for Bint Imperial. 9 points so far for Auld Reekie. Pixie Axe still on her first scoring pass, held there by Double Destruction, Crazy Legs, and Pope John Brawl with Ciderella guarding the outside lane. And Bint Imperial getting through easily this time. Second grand slam.
14 points so far. Big wide open lane on that one.
That's right, 2 grand slams, and her first scoring pass, of course, was only 4. Pixie Axe still trying to get her first 4 for the jam, but time runs out, and it's another 4 for Bint Imperial. Doesn't get that third grand slam, but it is that's 18 points for Auld Reekie, 4 points for Tucson.
Got 8.5 minutes left in this. Auld Reekie starting to open up a huge lead. That was also the first points for Tucson in 5 jams. So very great work by Auld Reekie, coming in rated much below Tucson and doing a great job so far in the first period.
Mystery Meat up front, Skinner Alive, and Mini Riot with a heavy shoulder. Skinner Alive keeping her in position, but Mystery Meat fighting them both off. Gets past Moby Quick and claims lead jammer, but that was slowed her down enough for Lilo and Stitches, the Auld Reekie jammer, to come out right behind her.
Lilo and Stitches holding up behind her. Pretty sure she's going to call it off. Slowed down a little bit, and time ticking off the clock. Not sure if this is going to be in Tucson's favor right now. Them being down by 20 some odd points. Again, not much of a difference, but enough where you're not going to want. This is also Tucson's first lead in 5 jams.
But Mystery Meat comes back with a sternum check that knocks down Lilo and Stitches and opens up a much larger opening. So it did work out for Mystery Meat. She opens up almost a half a lap over Lilo and Stitches. Gets a whip from Blackskin Bomber, but only gets 1 point for all that effort. So
1 point with a lot of time off the clock. So under 7 minutes left in the first half. But that was their first lead jammer in 5 jams for Tucson.
Clock drops below 7 minutes. Score 61 Auld Reekie, 39 for Tucson. Death Proof jamming for Tucson against Admiral Attack Bar, number 1111 for Auld Reekie. But Death Proof keeps forcing Admiral Attack Bar out of bounds, but Admiral Attack Bar keeps coming back in cleanly. Now the jammers are separated. Admiral Attack Bar almost getting knocked down by Cosmonauti, but manages to stay on her feet. Just incredibly graceful as well as a powerful skater, Admiral Attack Bar. She's got lead jammer again, maintaining that consistency. So far, still only one time jamming where she didn't get lead jammer. So critical in this game. And now on her first scoring pass, runs into Cosmonauti and Rafflecopter. Cosmonauti everywhere on the track now, but Admiral Attack Bar makes a little hop, little prance past Cosmonauti, claims the Grand Slam.
Right now, Auld Reekie leads with 11 lead jammers to Tucson's 8.
And Death Proof, the jammer for Tucson, recycled all the way back to the pivot line. She has been just getting completely shut down in this jam. Admiral Attack Bar comes through for a second Grand Slam, making a little easier work of it this time.
Admiral Attack Bar, big scorer for Auld Reekie, 10 points already in this jam. Now making her way through for a third pass.
Third scoring pass, and Rafflecopter on point, but Admiral Attack Bar able to skip past again. Only 4 points on this one, of course, because Death Proof did get out of the pack, but did not get into scoring position. Big jam for Admiral Attack Bar and Auld Reekie.
Admiral Attack Bar continuing her winning ways, put another 14 points on the board for the Twisted Thistles. And now Auld Reekie 75, Tucson 39. Gotta say, Bulldog, I'm very impressed with Auld Reekie so far, coming in on this. Under 5 minutes left, quite a bit of lead buildup. Tucson gonna have to make some adjustments, try and contain Admiral Attack Bar just to start with.
Well, I know that Auld Reekie was studying last night. They watched the Humboldt-Tucson game very carefully last night, knowing that they were going to be playing against this team this morning. So Caitlin O'Carroll, the jammer for Auld Reekie in the green jersey, gets out first for lead jammer. Midnight Crasher, a fresh jammer for Tucson, gets out as well, but about a half a lap behind Caitlin O'Carroll. Caitlin O'Carroll of Auld Reekie hits the pack on a scoring pass, gets forced out of bounds by Pixie Axe, calls off the jam from outside and settles for a single.
4-3 pack advantage for Tucson on that. Good use of using that pack advantage. Get back, force her out, force her to call it. Stop the bleeding at one point on that. But again, Auld Reekie putting those pennies up on the board. They've got it so far 76 of them in their penny bank.
It's working out for them pretty well so far.
It really is.
A 37 points separating the two teams now. Auld Reekie in the lead. Mystery Meat on the outside. Pope John Brawl forcing her out of bounds on the inside. She comes back in clean, though. Lilo and Stitches, the jammer for Auld Reekie, stuck behind a 3-wall, as well as Mystery Meat, actually providing something of a brace for her teammates, actually, briefly there. That was an interesting formation.
Great triangle defense at the back, and one more to beat at the front.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it after, but yes. I think there was something interesting that just happened there. I don't know if anyone noticed, but lead jammer nevertheless goes to Lilo and Stitches. She's on her first scoring pass now, and Mystery Meat stymied once again and gets it cutting the track. It's going to be a power jam for Auld Reekie. Lilo and Stitches. I'm double checking, make sure that it was not a penalty. I saw two referees. One was signaling a penalty, but it was actually the Tucson Jam ref still signaling the lead jammer call. Lilo and Stitches with a grand slam now on her second scoring pass. Cosmonauti and Blaxican Bomber are in position. Mini Riot tried to screen them out of the way unsuccessfully, but Lilo and Stitches is going to call it off. Only gets 4 out of potential 5, but a 9-point jam for Auld Reekie.
Currently, power jams making up a big part of this game. Auld Reekie with 4 power jams, Saddle Tramps only with 1. Now, the 30-second penalties do make it so you don't see the 50 points per power jam anymore, but it's still making a difference. Auld Reekie now 85, Tucson 39, under 2 minutes. We could be at the last jam.
Yeah, but a quick question: if a skater is blocking someone and their teammate falls in front of them and they use their fallen teammate to brace their knees against
No
for
problem.
support, is that a multiplayer block?
No, they're not creating an
I don't think so.
impenetrable
That's
link.
right. I know. But it does provide support, which is stronger than if someone's on the wheels. And in the meantime, Admiral Attack Bar gets lead jammer, predictably, and it picks up a 4-point pass already while I was blathering on about structural supports. Auld Reekie getting through the second time. Mystery Meat coming up just short.
I think we're going to get a score correction on that first pass. That should have been a grand slam. And then she'll pick up another 4, so it should be a 9-point jam to add on to Auld Reekie's good fortune. And 8 out of the last 10 lead jammers have been for the Twisted Thistles. Auld Reekie starting to take control of this game, 94-39. They did make that adjustment, yes.
That's right, so it was a 5 and a 4, not a 4 and a 4. Now Bint Imperial jamming for Auld Reekie in the green jersey against Run and Heidi, number 26 for Tucson. Dodges to the outside and gets through the pack, but Bint Imperial already lead jammer.
That's 9 out of the last 11 now lead jammers for Auld Reekie.
Bint Imperial calling off the jam, and she does it just in the nick of time, but does not pick up any points, so it's actually a scoreless jam.
Oh, and a late hit there on number 34, Double Destruction. She's going to go start this one in the penalty box, so we'll have a 4-3 pack advantage for Tucson.
I think so far Auld Reekie taking Tucson by surprise. They had 2 big victories yesterday in their 2 bouts, but Auld Reekie, I don't think they were expecting this after Auld Reekie's decisive defeat against Arizona.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But Auld Reekie out here surprising. Could fatigue be a factor for the Saddle Tramps? Possibly. But I think more importantly, penalty trouble early got them. As we go to halftime, Auld Reekie 94, Saddle Tramps 39. One heck of a bout so far, Bulldog. All right, we're going to go to halftime. We'll be back here in 8.5 minutes or so. We'll give you some keys to the game. I'm Phil Dirt with Bulldog. We'll be back. All right, I'm Phil Dirt. We're back with Bulldog. I'm going to throw it over to Just Jake with some keys to the game.
All right, well, going into this, one of the biggest opportunities from Auld Reekie from yesterday was getting lead jammer, and they've more than taken care of that. They have 15 lead jams for this first period. Tucson only has 8. Auld Reekie also capitalizing on power jams. They've had 4 of them. Tucson only had 1. Only 10 minutes in the penalty box for Auld Reekie. Tucson with 10 trips with 15. So right now what we're seeing is the impact of lead jammer and staying on the track, especially keeping the skaters on the track. So Tucson moving forward, keep their jammers out there. You get some good production, but not if they're in the box. So stay on the track and get that first pass. Admiral Attack Bar has been doing great for Auld Reekie. 8 out of 9 lead jams, 35 points total. Mystery Meat is holding it down for Tucson right now. 4 out of 8 lead jams and 18 points there for her. If we can get some production out of the first pass, keep Tucson on the track, they can come back to this really fast.
Thank you, Just Jake. I think I agree with that. If they can stay on the track, and again, penalty trouble big early, but Tucson was able to hold in. Not getting lead jammer late in that period was hindering them, and now they're down 94-39 as we start the second period.
55 points separating, so that's a considerable lead, but not a very big lead in the grand scheme of things. We've seen much larger leads, and this is certainly, like Just Jake said, a lead that can be overcome in just a few jams potentially.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen some large jams. We haven't seen a lot of large jams in here. Couple for Auld Reekie. Admiral Attack Bar again with great offensive work. It looks like she'll be starting for Auld Reekie.
Mystery Meat also starting for Tucson. Tucson in the black jerseys. Admiral Attack Bar of Auld Reekie in the green jersey out races Dirty Duchess and Judonomi and gets out for lead jammer. Mystery Meat still in the pack, held there by one blocker. That's Crazy Legs. Shoves her hips out, but Mystery Meat able to get out. But now Admiral Attack Bar of Auld Reekie on her first scoring pass. Brushes off a shoulder check from Dirty Duchess, but sees Mystery Meat coming up and calls it off.
Good call off there. Only picked up the 3 points. Couldn't get her hips past that final Tucson skater, but great call off, making sure that Tucson stays off the board here early in the second period.
Admiral Takbar, 8 out of 9 lead jams, 35 points. And Mystery Meat for
Bint Imperial lined up for Auld Reekie against Midnight Crasher. Second time jamming for Tucson. Auld Reekie down one blocker, double destruction, standing in the penalty box at the first whistle. So Tucson with a slight back advantage, but that is erased as double destruction returns. It's 5-on-5 now. Bint Imperial thwarted on the outside lane by Pixie Axe and Midnight Crasher passing up double destruction to get out of the pack, and lead jammer goes to Tucson.
Mini Riot going off the track for a multiplayer block on that.
Midnight Crasher goes through the pack easily, just ghosts her way through, gets all 4.
Great work by Tucson's blockers, confusing the Auld Reekie blockers enough to leave that giant hole in the open. I don't think they were aware the jammer was coming up. Tucson not only blocking open a big hole, but screening the jammer as she was coming around. Good work, Tucson, and they get their first points on the board of the second period.
Mini Riot still in the penalty box, so 4-on-3 pack advantage again for Tucson. They're fielding Death Proof, number 37, as jammer against Auld Reekie's Lilo and Stitches. Death Proof quickly up to the front and batters Spoke John Brawl to the ground and escapes for lead jammer. Lilo and Stitches going to the penalty box, so a power jam opportunity for Tucson.
Good work by the Tucson blockers, drawing that cut, knocking her out of bounds, doing the step back, and picking up the power jam.
Death Proof fights her way past Crazy Legs and Velocity and Pope John Brawl, completing the pass for 5. Second scoring pass. Now Crazy Legs the only one there. Blackstick and Bomber screening Pope John Brawl and Velocity out of the way. Crazy Legs unable to stop her. Second grand slam for Death Proof.
Great work by Death Proof and the Tucson blockers. Now letting her Death Proof do it by herself.
Crazy Legs this time able to get Death Proof out, and she calls off the jam, but just as Lilo and Stitches is released from the box, so Auld Reekie will be able to field a fresh jammer in the next jam.
14 points for Tucson on that jam as Tucson starts climbing their way out of the hole they find themselves in. Now 57-97. Big run with a couple of nice jams for Tucson. Whatever the coach said to him, didn't catch on in the very first one, but has obviously caught on now.
So it was a 55-point lead, now only a 40-point lead for Auld Reekie. Admiral Attack Bar jamming once again for Auld Reekie against Run and Heidi. Run and Heidi stopped by a free wall. It's Bint Imperial, Yin and Bang, and Ciderella. But she sneaks past Ciderella on the outside. Bint Imperial trying to catch her, but Run and Heidi of Tucson is out for lead jammer. Admiral Attack Bar, this is only her second time not getting lead jammer for Auld Reekie. Weaves her way right around the Tucson defense, just ahead of Run and Heidi, and just barely avoids giving up that jammer point. Only 4 for Tucson.
4-2 pack advantage for Tucson. Auld Reekie getting caught on a couple of multiplayer blocks. That one were able to pop the Tucson jammer free. They had a nice 3 triangles set up, but one multiplayer block was called in that. 3 lead jammers in a row now for Tucson. Tucson obviously back in this game.
You said Delta. You said triangle. I think Delta sounds cooler.
Delta?
Delta formation.
Delta.
It's tactical.
They love to fly and it shows.
Yeah, well, there's that. That wasn't a plug. Mystery Meat jamming for Tucson. Knocks down Crazy Legs and makes short work of Pope John Brawl. Gets out for lead jammer. Caitlin O'Carroll jamming for Auld Reekie, stuck at the back by Bonita, and a shoulder takes her down on the inside. Bonita drawing her back, but gets a penalty.
Forearm took her down on the inside there.
But nevertheless, Caitlin O'Carroll still in the pack, drawn to the rear of the pack as Mystery Meat completes her first scoring pass, gets the grand slam. Dirty Duchess taking down Caitlin O'Carroll with a shoulder, but she was out of play, and Caitlin O'Carroll comes back in clean. Dirty Duchess to the box. Mystery Meat calling off the jam. 1 point Tucson on that last scoring pass.
Now Tucson doing the take the penny and run, but still a huge amount of lead jammers in a row for Tucson. Down by 30 now, and they were down by 54 at the start.
Okay, so far, Auld has only scored 3 points in the second half.
28 points from the last 4 jams for Tucson. Tucson taking control of this in the second period.
Pixie Axe thrusting her hips backwards, but falls down, and Lilo and Stitch is able to get around Rafflecopter. Lead jammer for Edinburgh. That's Auld Reekie.
Mini Riot going off for another multiplayer block, followed by double destruction, and again a huge pack advantage for Tucson.
And that's just as Bonita returns to play. So Tucson up to 3 blockers, with Auld Reekie only having Skinner Alive and Velocity in play. But right now, Lilo and Stitches is lead jammer, calls off the jam, doesn't pick up any points in that scoring pass, but did get.
Did get
adjust?
2.
Okay.
Adjustment 2 points, so 6. I think Short Fuse looking in the penalty box, making sure no one else had got sent off or was coming back, so 2 points more for Auld Reekie. 6-point jam. Good answer from Auld Reekie for what the Tucson skaters have been doing to him in the last few jams.
But still, it's 28-9 in the second half in favor of Tucson. So Tucson coming on strong early on. There's Death Proof fighting against Crazy Legs. Now dodges the inside to try and just ekes past Pope John Brawl to go get lead jammer for Tucson.
Admiral Attack Bar not getting lead jammer for only the 3rd time out there.
And a low block called against Blaxican Bomber. That helps out Auld Reekie a little bit, because Blaxican Bomber has been a tremendously effective blocker the entire first half, and strong in the second as well.
Oh, she's been putting on a checking clinic all day so far, Bulldog. Timeout taken by Auld Reekie. That's going to be their 2nd timeout. But they're going to try and stop the bleeding right now. 103-69. Be able to increase their lead a little bit the last couple jams, but Tucson, nice work getting right back in this game.
Now they started out the half with a 55-point lead. Now only a 34-point lead over Tucson.
Was a little bit wider than that. Tucson right now with 5 lead jammers. Auld Reekie only 2 in the second period. Tucson taking control of lead jammer, which means that they've been taking control of the score. I think that's one of the things being talked about there in Auld Reekie's huddle. How we're going to stop lead jammer from happening for Tucson. Admiral Attack Bar, not a sure thing like she was in the first.
Mystery Meat, number 717, lining up to jam for Tucson in the black jersey.
Auld Reekie 9 points, Tucson 30 here in the second half.
It looks like Bent Imperial. Yes, Bent Imperial jamming for Auld Reekie. Bent Imperial shuffled to the outside by Pixie Axe. Bent Imperial didn't see Pixie Axe drop back and gets the technical cutting the track. Mystery Meat now on the power jam.
All by herself. Great work again, Tucson defenders shooting back, drawing that cut. Now letting their jammer, little passive offense, letting their jammer fight her way through.
First scoring pass for Mystery Meat, runs into the 3-wall. Skinner Alive, Mini Riot, and Velocity. Mini Riot drops back to bridge. Skinner Alive and Velocity, though, almost forcing Mystery Meat backwards. Also, of course, you have to be careful about that. Avoid the cutting the track penalty. Or sorry, excuse me, a clockwise block penalty.
Pixie Axe did come through and bust a hold, but did not able to follow it.
And Bint Imperial getting a little bit of revenge on Pixie X, comes across and gets that shoulder into the shoulder blade of Pixie X, knocking her down, but that only completes her initial pass. Tucson winning that jam and closing the gap a little bit more.
4-0 on the end of that. Auld Reekie, though, still at 103, Tucson 78. Close game.
25 points now separating the two teams. Auld Reekie still held to only 9 points in the entire second half after 9 minutes of play.
Empty penalty box to start this one off, Bulldog.
Death Proof, number 37, jamming for Tucson against Admiral Attack Bar, who's forced out of bounds and has to recycle back to turn 4. And once again, Admiral Attack Bar's not lead jammer streak continues. She was so strong in the first half, but now she's just struggling to get out of the pack first. Death Proof comes through for 2 and calls it off.
Another 2-0 run. Now Tucson taking a page out of Auld Reekie's book. Nickel and dime and even penny your way. Get back right into this game and taking control, making sure it's their momentum, great momentum going for the Saddle Tramps.
And that jam was actually a twopence for Tucson.
Twopence.
Or toppins. That's where the word toppins comes from. You know that?
There's a word toppins.
And from Mary Poppins.
8 of 10
There's a whole
lead.
song about it.
8 of 10 lead jammer, Governor.
Lilo and Stitches jamming for Auld Reekie, gets past Blaxican Bomber and Judo Nomi. Looks like Rafflecopter going to the penalty box, and lead jammer for Auld Reekie's Lilo and Stitches.
And Tucson picking up a multiplayer block call in that, so they're down 2 blockers, 4-2 pack advantage.
Lilo and Stitches forced wide by Judo Nomi. She calls off the jam. Run-in Heidi did get out of the back, but did not get into scoring position.
Looked like Judo Nomi with a big hit, but they're saying that was after the 4th whistle. So Tucson now in penalty trouble with a 4-2 pack advantage for Auld Reekie.
Now, I think Tucson's out there. It looks like they may be questioning the call. We don't know yet, but
Yes, does look like an official review. Official review being called. I'm going to guess on the timing of that hit, whether Judo Chop hit her after the 4th whistle or before.
and it comes down to when she initiated the contact. Because if she initiated it before the 4th whistle, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you are absolutely correct, sir. But if she had it lined up and was about to hit her, no, that's not good enough. But if contact had already been made as the 4th whistle was being blown, then she should be legal. We, of course, have a time delay up here. And that was the first Auld Reekie points in that last jam in 5 jams. So Auld Reekie needing to get back into this. His momentum has completely swung. Referees are going to talk about it, discuss everything from every angle. I think a relatively good review for Tucson to ask for, especially now that if you're correct, you get it back. Tucson still with all 3 of their timeouts. Auld Reekie only 1 timeout. They also still have their review.
Definitely check them out. Wild Ducks. They've got food and stuff.
With 19 minutes left in this, I think we got plenty of time for anything.
And in case you missed it before, we do have special message to Bullet.
Tucson only down 27 points. Just been doing fantastic in the second period.
Yeah, of course, assuming we're correct about what this official review is about, of course, we'll give you the full information as soon as we know it. But assuming we're correct, you want to keep your eyes on number 77 for Tucson in the penalty box. You can see her just on the screen in the background. She's the one on the left there, who's speaking right now, just to the left of Ciderella's shoulder. And
Probably saying how fantastic the officials are doing here this afternoon, this morning, tonight. What time is it? Whatever time it is where you are, that's what time it is.
Well, for any Auld Reekie fans who are watching right now, it's 8 hours ahead of what time it is now. So whatever, I don't even know what time it is right now.
You're out here on the street and you don't even know what time it is.
Well, it's just past 10 o'clock a.m. in Pacific time, which means it's about 6 p.m. or 1800.
Ah, there you go.
18 o'clock.
That makes the math easier.
Yeah,
Ish.
they
Not.
use 24-hour clock. It's very confusing. It means I'm always 2 hours late for anything I need to show up for.
I thought you were just 2 hours late for anything you needed to show up on.
Well, in the afternoon, yeah. In the morning, I'm 2 hours late as a matter of principle, but.
All right, they should have the microphone out there.
I think the dude in the middle had it. I think the guy in the green shirt in the middle has it.
All right, we'll get word from Testosterone Jeremy. Yeah, close enough. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I apologize to the entire Jeremy family for mispronouncing that.
But once again, we are in the middle of an official review requested by Tucson. There was a late block called against Judo Nomi, number 77 of Tucson. And they believe, presumably, that is what they're questioning. But
here comes
no change in the penalty box.
And here comes Testosterone Jeremy.
We're going to do a shout out. But not now.
Oh, come on.
Technical difficulties on the microphone, so we are unable to hear his ruling on the track. However, I don't see any change in the score, no change in the penalty box. So apparently all calls and points stand. So presumably
They will not be.
official review overruled.
All right, will be it's overruled, and they will not get one back. So that is their only chance this game, or this period.
And Admiral Attack Bar back on her feet, getting lead jammer over Mystery Meat. Mystery Meat making short work of the pack behind her, but a half a lap, and Admiral Attack Bar gets an almost wide open field. It was a 4-on-2 pack advantage. Auld Reekie sweeping Cosmonauti out of the way. Pixiac just making a glancing blow.
Auld Reekie with a couple of nice jams in a row. Momentum had swung entirely into the Saddle Tramps camp, but now seems to be sweeping slightly back. And we have a special message here from Bullet of Auld Reekie Roller Girls. Thank you for holding down the fort while we're away. We love you and our league for your support. Love from the Twisted Thistles to Bullet.
Death Proof number 37 jamming for Tucson against Caitlin O'Carroll, who trips over her teammates. And now a multiplayer block called against Bint Imperial sends her to the penalty box and allows Death Proof the opening she was looking for. She gets lead jammer.
A lot of multiplayer block calls on both of these teams.
Caitlin O'Carroll still in the back of the pack, still trying to get through her initial pass. A grand slam now for Death Proof as she makes short work of the pack. Caitlin O'Carroll behind it, 2 wall at the front, Judo Nomi and Rafflecopter, but they're unable to stop her this time. But Death Proof getting into the back on her second scoring pass, calls off the jam, but doesn't get at any points.
So a 5-0 run, and that momentum minger swinging back and forth rapidly. Auld Reekie now 111, Tucson 85. Still a lot of time left in this period there, Bulldog.
Would you say that they keep reversing polarity?
I would say that. I would.
It always works in Star Trek.
If only we had a Tachyon minute. Oh, wait, I think she's playing in the juniors.
Lilo and Stitches jamming for Auld Reekie against as a Midnight Crasher. Midnight Crasher stuck in a scrum, a total meat grinder of a pack. Both jammers getting knocked about, but Lilo and Stitches getting the cutting the track penalty. Midnight Crasher fighting off Pope John Brawl of Auld Reekie
And
against lead jammer.
Cinderella picking up a multiplayer block, which that was what popped her loose. So now a power jam for Tucson.
Indeed, Ciderella in the penalty box for Auld Reekie. So that drops into only 3 blockers. Bint Imperial and Crazy Legs unable to stop Midnight Crasher getting a grand slam.
Tucson taking control of the second period. That's going to take them up to another 5 points on the scoreboard.
Takes them to only 21 points behind. They started out 55 points behind Auld Reekie and now are only about less than 5 Grand Slams away from the ladies in green.
Another 4 put on the board there, so a 9-point jam. Tucson 94, just chipping away. Hell, more than chipping, bulldozing their way back into this game.
Auld Reekie started at 94 points, so they have only scored 17 points in the second half, if my math is correct.
If your math, I'm not checking it. I can only go to 5.
That's right. You cut your teeth as a referee in the sport. Referees can only count to 5. Only have to.
Maybe 6 on that really weird occasion.
Occasionally, yes. Oh, it looks like Judo Nomi got a bad hit. She's on the sidelines, and medics are coming over, but she is clear of the track. So the referees, as long as she is not posing a danger to the skaters on the track, will not stop the jam unless there's actually blood or any kind of fluid,
yeah, or she's still in the skating lane, getting hauled up by the EMTs right now. Looks like having trouble putting weight on one leg. So hopefully she'll be all right. A big part of this saddle tramp defense.
Only 14 points now separating Tucson from Auld Reekie, but all attention naturally focused on the Tucson skater, but she's over being treated by the medics, and we'll keep an eye on that. Right now, we're very concerned about the Tucson skater.
Hopefully she'll be all right. Looks like a leg problem. Applying ice right now on the bench.
Yeah, okay, well, they're not applying a splint.
That's always a good sign.
So, yeah, I think a few people probably, I'm breathing a little sigh of relief because that was a brutal takedown that she got. I don't think that there was no penalty, so it was a clean hit, but she may have just landed poorly.
It did look like a poor landing. So rolling, EMT's running over with a bag of ice and a bag of ace bandages. So we're gonna hope that fixes her up and she'll be right as rain for the next bout for Tucson. Or back after 3.
Well, Testosterone Jeremy, when checked this skater, says that we're ready to proceed, but of course, was the jam called due to that injury?
No, she had gotten out. Tucson Jammer had called it.
Real quick to all of our EMT team, we cannot have the FTDA.
There's the whistle. We've got Vint Imperial finding an open inside lane. Scheiderella just screening Death Proof out of the way, and the rest of the blockers in green allowing Vint Imperial to skate freely, easily getting lead jammer. Death Proof, the jammer for Tucson, taken out by Crazy Legs.
Crazy Legs with their second big hit. Now 3 big hits so far.
Vint Imperial again getting through the pack easily, just breezing through the pack. The Auld Reekie blocker is just in control of the pack completely. And Vint Imperial getting in, this time running into Pinky McLovin, sweeping her out of the way, but getting forced out of the bounds in the process, calls it off for Auld Reekie.
0-0 on that last one, but 5 points for Vint Imperial. 116.97. Not the lead they had at one point in time, but the lead they have right now. Good jam to try and move some of the momentum back in their direction. Crazy Legs with an amazing set of blocks in there, not only opening a hole for her jammer, but closing one for the Tucson jammer.
Mystery Meat versus Admiral Attack Bar. Mystery Meat barging into the outside lane, but gets caught by Velocity and Dinner Alive, but a burst around the outside, but Minnie Ryan almost catches her in turn 2. But lead jammer goes to Tucson. Admiral Attack Bar still in the pack, trying to get around the 2-wall of Bonita and Cosmonati. It breaks down as they get out of the engagement zone, and Admiral Attack Bar is free, but Mystery Meat on her first scoring pass. It's a back block penalty, so it's a power jam for Auld Reekie. No lead jammer.
And 5 big points for Admiral Attack Bar. Not what Tucson needed right now. See what Auld Reekie's style is going to be. Looks like a couple of blockers trying to help.
Emasculator number 9 going to the penalty box for Tucson as well. So only 3 blockers left on the track for Tucson. Second Grand Slam for Admiral Attack Bar.
Admiral Attack Bar racking them up all day today. Very impressed with this jammer out of Edinburgh.
Bonita comes across with a shoulder check, tries to draw her back out of the turn, but Skinner Alive puts a stop to that. Admiral Attack Bar comes in clean, jukes to the inside of Dirty Duchess, and gets out for a third Grand Slam for Auld Reekie.
Bonita putting on some big shoulder checks out there. Couldn't stop Admiral Attack Bar, but did slow her down and let her know that she was there.
Mystery Meat back out of the penalty box, but only completing her initial pass. Admiral Attack Bar getting a fourth scoring pass, 4 points this time. Mystery Meat on her first scoring pass.
Auld Reekie putting the points back up on the board. Out of play called there on Mini Riot.
Only 3 points for Mystery Meat on that scoring pass. Brings them to 104 points. Auld Reekie at 135, but get a low block called on Admiral Attack Bar.
Now here's there going to be Tucson's chance. They pick up a Grand Slam at the end of that, and we'll start the next jam on an Uber Jam. They'll have all 4 blockers and a jammer on the track. Looks like, one release just, so there will be a 4-3 pack advantage with only 1 jammer on the floor.
That's going to be Midnight Crasher for Tucson.
Shout out here. We want to give this one from Apple.
Tucson just doing a great job in the second period. Official timeout being taken.
I was looking at the track. Auld Reekie still only had 2 blockers on the track, but only Mini Riot's the only blocker in the penalty box, so they may have been in danger of skating short unnecessarily.
There were 2 right at the end of the jam in the penalty box, 2 blockers, that is, for Auld Reekie. I did not see one stand up, but I only see 1 blocker in there now, and of course, Wizard of Laws, our penalty box manager, on top of things, talking with our head referee. There she goes. That would be
Pope John Brawl.
Thank you, Pope John Brawl, back into the sin bin. So far in this period, we've seen 11 lead jammers for Tucson and only 5 for Auld Reekie, and Tucson has picked up 60 points so far, while Auld Reekie's only picked up 38. So Auld Reekie controlling the damage a little bit, hanging on a little better than they were at the rate earlier in this period, but Tucson definitely getting their game on and coming out strong. This is definitely looking like it will be good for Tucson. Power Jam, 4-2 pack advantage. You don't see the Uber Jam near as much as you used to with the 1-minute penalties.
They don't last very long either. Only that 30 seconds really makes a difference, really keeps the majority of the skaters on the track most of the time. But now we've got only 2 blockers against Midnight Crasher. She squeezes to the outside of Bint Imperial and Ciderella, getting lead jammer easily.
Tucson gonna let their jammer do all the work. A little bit of help there, but not much. No pack declared.
The Rafflecopter tried to sweep aside the defender, but Bint Imperial able to dodge around her, but nevertheless Midnight Crasher able to break through. Gets that Grand Slam. 1
more blocker back on the track as Mini Riot comes back out.
Pope John Brawl returns, and now Admiral Attack Bar is on the track. Power Jam is over, but second scoring pass on the finishing up that Power Jam for Midnight Crasher with a Grand Slam.
And Bint Imperial back off to the sin bin for a multiplayer block.
So that puts it back to 4-on-3 pack advantage for Tucson. Admiral Attack Bar coming in for her first scoring pass around the outside, just caught by Rafflecopter. Only manages to get 1 point, 2 points for Tucson in that last scoring pass.
12 points for Tucson, only 1 point for Auld Reekie during that jam. So another big jam for Tucson. 121-136, 10 minutes left in the game.
And that puts Tucson only 15 points behind Auld Reekie. They've made up a 40 points of the deficit since the halftime. They were 55 points behind at the half. Now only 15 points. Mystery Meat responsible for a large portion of that makeup. Making up that deficit. Gets forced out of bounds. It's almost seeing daylight, but Auld Reekie forcing her to recycle all the way back to the jammer line. Lilo and Stitches the jammer for Auld Reekie up front now, facing a 3-wall, but Mystery Meat sneaks on by, gets out, does not get a lead jammer though, so door's still open if Lilo and Stitches can get out.
She had never passed Velocity. Velocity knocked her out of bounds, but went far enough back where she was delayed or was declared out of play.
Lilo and Stitches does get out and gains lead jammer, and Mystery Meat unable to make any passes, so a staunch defensive wall at the back completely repels Mystery Meat.
Great work defensively by Auld Reekie to hold on that one. Yeah, but they knocked out, went back further than 20 feet, so no pass, no penalty. Oh, and a late hit called, I believe, there.
I also saw a multiplayer block called by the outside pack ref, but I'm not sure who ended up serving for that.
Oh, and now there's only 2 blockers on the floor again for Auld Reekie, but only 3 for Tucson, but still advantage Tucson. Hence, lead jammer again for Tucson here in the second period.
Death Proof, number 37, the jammer for Tucson. Admiral Attack Bar skipping past Blaxican Bomber, but Death Proof making short work of Mini Riot and Pope John Brawl, completing the pass for 4, calling it off.
Another 4-0 run for Tucson. Tucson so close. I think right now Auld Reekie just taking a lot of penalties. Only 1 timeout left though, so they aren't going to want to use that just to get their heads back. They may need that for clock management as time ticks away.
Things are heating up. Only 11 points separating these two teams, and we've seen numerous jams by both teams of scoring more than 11 points. So now this could be just 1 jam away from a turnover. Now we've got Run-In Heidi jamming for Tucson, fighting a 3-wall, now a 4-wall. Bent Imperial coming in just ahead, but Skinner Alive taking her out. And there is Caitlin O'Carroll of Auld Reekie getting lead jammer. Now lapping the opposing jammer, running into the Tucson defense on her first scoring pass. Cosmonauti and Pinky McLovin in a double team. Caitlin O'Carroll staying upright, now one-on-one with Cosmonauti as the rest of the Tucson blockers drop back to bridge. And it's a grand slam for Caitlin O'Carroll.
Skinner Alive going to head off to the penalty box for an out-of-play block at the back of that. Oh, and now a power jam.
Run-In Heidi going to the penalty box. That means Caitlin O'Carroll on her second scoring pass and the only jammer on the track. Bonita, number 4 and 6, knocking her to the outside, but Caitlin O'Carroll somehow no, she does step out of bounds. Dirty Duchess got her out of bounds and stepped back. Caitlin O'Carroll did not see it and goes to the box.
I think what she thought was that it was going to be a stop block call, because a stop block call was called at the back of the pack, but she saw the signal, thought she was free to go back in, but instead she's free to go to the penalty box.
So jammers swap out, and now it's a power jam for Tucson's Run-In Heidi. She gets around the rear guard. Velocity picks her up, slows her down, but has to back off at 20 feet at the end of the engagement zone. And so that's the initial pass for Tucson. Run-In Heidi now running in. Bonita busting a hole in the wall, but Skinner Alive managed to get in front and knocking her down. But Run-In Heidi able to fight her way through. But now Caitlin O'Carroll back on the track for Auld Reekie, so no more power jam. Only 1 scoring pass for Run-In Heidi. Now on her second scoring pass, but I believe Caitlin O'Carroll was also on a scoring pass. I just don't remember which one. I think it was the third one.
So 4-3 at the end of that one. Looks like Auld Reekie with 9 points, Tucson with 8 during that. So Auld Reekie adding to that very tenacious lead they have.
But ultimately only getting a 1-point differential. They were 11 points ahead at the beginning of the previous jam, now only 12 points ahead.
Tucson going to start this with a 4-2 pack advantage. Auld Reekie really needing to stay out of the penalty box right now.
It's Ciderella in the box, so a 4-on-3 pack advantage for Tucson. Admiral Attack Bar makes a quick move around the outside, gets caught by that Dirty Duchess, but a glancing shoulder, and she is lead jammer. Admiral Attack Bar of Auld Reekie. Mystery Meat jamming for Tucson whizzes past Mini Riot to complete her initial pass, but a half a lap behind Admiral Attack Bar. Admiral Attack Bar of Auld Reekie on her first scoring pass, slams into Pixie Axe, who forces her out of bounds. Now Admiral Attack Bar calling off the jam. Is that?
Looks like 2 points for both. So even up, that will just carry on over. That jam, nothing but a time waster for the most part.
So Mystery Meat managing to sneak into the pack. I think she also got did she get a ghost point? Could you tell?
I don't believe so. I think she did pass 2 Auld Reekie skaters, just dove forward to get her hips past at the end. Always work till that 4th whistle.
So right now, Auld Reekie hanging on by a thread. Only 12 points separating the two with 4 minutes remaining in the game. Lilo and Stitches getting double teamed. Rufflecopter and Pixie Axe, but they can't stop her. She squeezes past Rufflecopter and gets lead jammer for Auld Reekie. That could be a huge factor in this end game play. The Lilo and Stitches on a scoring pass, just barely ducks under shoulder check from Blaxican Bomber and escapes the back with a grand slam. Midnight Crasher, the jammer for Tucson, getting forced out, comes back in, still on her initial pass, and now about to get lapped a second time by Lilo and Stitches.
That's going to be, this is the first 3 in a row lead jammer for Auld Reekie in the second period.
Lilo and Stitches still working on her second scoring pass, but a stiff resistance from Tucson. They have a 4-wall at the back of the pack with Blaxican Bomber and Pixie Axe leading the charge.
And Lilo and Stitches, of course, already scored 5 points in this, now on another scoring pass.
Pinky McLovin gets a penalty, and that means Tucson now down a blocker. Midnight Crasher still on her initial pass, gets forced out of bounds by Bint Imperial and recycled back to turn 4. Lilo and Stitches, though, still having a lot of difficulty on her second pass, but now up at the front. Rufflecopter and Blaxican Bomber in a 2-wall on point for Tucson. Pixie Axe stays kept out of the mix by Caitlin O'Carroll. But Blaxican Bomber just barely catches Lilo and Stitches, but goes out of bounds herself, and Lilo and Stitches able to complete the pass, but gets a no pass, no penalty. Only 4 out of potential 5 on that scoring pass.
Oh, a handoff there. Now Pixie Axe wearing the star for Tucson.
Lilo and Stitches comes in on her 3rd scoring pass, but gets shut down. Only 2 points on that.
Tucson going to take a timeout, stop the clock at 2:12 left, 135, 158. Good use of time management for their timeouts for the Sandal Tramps. Get their strategy. Big jam. Leave 11-point jam for Auld Reekie as time's starting to run out. Increases their lead now to 23 points with 2 minutes and change left. Starting to keep out of the box a little bit. I mean, there is 1 skater from each team sitting in the sin bin, but I think that's been one of the stories so far of the game. Lead jammer and penalties. Get some stats up here momentarily for you. Tucson so far in this period, 64 points. No, pay no attention. Auld Reekie, 64 points, excuse me. So not as big as their first period by a long shot. 96 points for Tucson. So Tucson so far has been winning the second period, but Auld Reekie set up enough of a cushion. They're still hanging on, but we've got enough time for a jam or 2. Tucson still with 2 timeouts. Auld Reekie with only 1.
We've switched from a team timeout into an official timeout.
Oh, 5 power jams for Tucson. Auld Reekie with only 2 power jams here in the second half. I think those numbers were reversed in the first half. Official timeout coming. Oh my goodness, it looks like a power jam for Auld Reekie. Tucson 13, Auld Reekie 9 lead jammers, but now we're going to have a power jam with only 2 minutes and 12 seconds remaining.
That would mean that, now, Midnight Crasher was the jammer at the beginning of the jam previously, but she passed the star, but that would mean that she got the penalty before the star actually changed hands to Pixie Axe.
That's true. So now coming back, I didn't see an official review. One of the other referees must have finally caught it, and it finally went up the food chain. So now a power jam.
Now, and one slightly fortunate aspect of that is that Pixie Axe didn't score any points, because if she had, those points might have been disqualified.
Oh, that would only be points scored in error, because she'll still serve the penalty.
Yes, that is the proper terminology, yes. But Admiral Akbar now already lead jammer on the power jam. He faced some tough resistance from Cosmonauti, Bonita, Pixie Axe, and Dirty Duchess, but managed to get through for the Grand Slam. But that killed time off the penalty. Midnight Crasher back in action as jammer for Tucson, but on her initial pass. Admiral Akbar weaves her way through the defense and gets a second Grand Slam.
Pixie Axe out of the penalty box, now trying to pass it on yet again, but getting pushed out of play there by number 85, Skinner Alive.
Skinner Alive saw the star pass happening and just forced the Tucson jammer forward, which you don't see very often. Usually the defense is trying to force them back, but she forced her forward out of reach of the pivot. So very alert blocking by Skinner Alive of Auld Reekie.
Great
Pixie
play.
Axe.
Now 2 players in the box for Auld Reekie, but still lead jammer and controlling the tempo of this game.
Admiral Akbar putting on some big numbers, comes in, just brushes off a shoulder check from Bonita and completes the pass, gets 4 points. Pixie Axe matching those points on her first scoring pass.
But so far 19 points for Auld Reekie, only 4 points for Tucson.
And Admiral Akbar content to allow the jam to continue, because the clock right now is Auld Reekie's friend. They have the lead and only seconds remaining in the period.
Oh, big hit there. That jam's gonna finally come to an end, and there comes the timeout signal from Tucson. Good clock management by our Saddle Tramps coaches.
But Auld Reekie managing to extend their lead even further, so Tucson has a big hill to climb if they want to pull out a win in this game.
Exactly. They found themselves in quite the big hole at the end of this. Tucson doing almost everything right for most of the second period. Staying out of the box, getting lead jammer, calling it off after picking up some points, but then an unfortunate power jam here with 2 minutes left. And we've got Auld Reekie 177, Tucson 141. While there's 12 seconds left on the clock, so we'll get the one last jam in. Tucson, a big road to hoe right now.
Now, right, the current rankings, I'm looking at the current rankings. Tucson is ranked 56. Auld Reekie is ranked 97th in the WFTDA. So they're almost half of the rank of Auld Reekie. So this could be a really big win for Auld Reekie. In fact, this could be a really big win if they don't lose by much.
Yeah.
But right now, it looks like they're in the driver's seat.
Auld Reekie with 5 out of 6 last lead jammers. Flat Track Stats had Tucson 89% in this game.
So right now, Auld Reekie in position for a big upset, and that could very well do it. Bint Imperial picking up lead jammer. She can just watch the clock at this point, and the clock has expired. In fact, right now, if she calls off the jam at any point, of course, just for the record, they can't hear me in the auditorium.
Right.
And there she goes, calling off the jam. She goes ahead and picks up 4. Phil Dirt, what do you think?
Bulldog, what an amazing game. I'm so impressed by Auld Reekie. Just amazing work controlling this game. They're going to win this 177-141 unofficially. I got to make sure our non-skating officials are doing the math, and we love them for doing that. But what an amazing, impressive game by Auld Reekie. I think coming into this heavy underdog, Tucson the favorite, especially winning both bouts they were in yesterday. Tucson just too many times in the penalty box. Auld Reekie able to control the pack speed, control momentum for most of the game. Just great work by Auld Reekie.
And there it is. It is the final score. 177 for Auld Reekie, 141 for Tucson. Auld Reekie with the upset.
Great work both offensively and defensively by Auld Reekie. Transition game was great. So congratulations to the Twisted Thistles for picking up this victory over Tucson Saddle Tramps. Saddle Tramps setting up a victory wall for them to skate through. The arch.
A tunnel or a bridge, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on. And Auld Reekie instantly getting into formation. It has become a fun tradition in roller derby.
Great team game by both of these. Tucson going to go back, watch some film, figure out what all they did wrong. I think really penalties is what killed them on this one. But congratulations to Auld Reekie.
And I am not a doctor.
I see good things in their future.
We enjoyed our time with you. We'll see you all a little bit later on the track.
So I'm Phil Dirt.
I'm Bulldog.
You stay tuned. Next up, we have Rose City Rosebuds versus the I-5 Roller Girls. We'll see you on the flip side.
Made from the game yesterday with Texas, particularly in their jammer lineup. They leaned really heavily on Tannibal last night.
That's a good call.
She's a good person to lean on because she's a amazing skater. I think that there were adjustments they needed to make defensively because she's typically such a defensive, strong floor general defensively for them, and so they had to make some adjustments there. They pulled out the stops on jammers today. They jammed everybody. So obviously, Tana, Lindsay, some of the usual Mad Medic from yesterday. Seems like she's doing well after that pretty scary hit last night. Chikachula made her scared to death, took a couple turns. Hockey Honey tossed on the star at one point.
Nice.
They had some penalty issues again today. Mater was left the game in the first half, so there was
first half.
There was a foul out there.
Wow.
So there was a lot of adjustments. I think obviously the final score. When we can talk about the score. So Ole did take the win, 219 to Treasure Valley's 84. That first 15 minutes though were pretty close, 20 to 30 point spread for quite a while. Treasure Valley was working a lot on the Soul Crush, right?
Yes.
Hit out, run back. They had some success with that right off the jammer line. Standouts. Scarlet Danger played an incredible game as always. It was a fun game. I think I'm curious to see how. Treasure Valley is doing really great. Not surprisingly, but I'm really curious to see how Ole fares for the rest of the tournament too. I always love watching them skate.
One of the things that you were mentioning to me before we were on the show was that Ole was having some difficulty with out of play in the front of the pack, and as opposed to Treasure Valley being able to stretch the pack out in the back of the pack.
So I'll say first and foremost, I'm not a ref. I'm out of position. I'm a spectator. I'm always out of position. And I'm not disagreeing with any of the calls I saw, but I did see Ole struggling with the bridging. I saw frustration on their part on the floor, thinking they were in play at points where it was one of those bridge pieces was lost. 15. You started at 15 feet, so I think that I hope they're smart. That's an adjustment they'll make going into their next game. There was a lot of bridging out in the back, which I think sport-wide right now maybe isn't being called as tightly. It's when the action's in the front, it's far shinier than the action in the back. So I think that was a frustration that I heard from them on the track.
I am interested to see high numbers of penalties coming. Like the out of play penalties I get because Ole's being used to playing USARs and playing faster in the front and stuff like that. So I get that sort of difficulty coming back into the WFTDA rule set. But the egregious hits and the insubordination and yelling at referees and having players yell at a referee that we've got evals, that smacks of something that's completely uncalled for in this era of the game.
Poor sportsmanship.
I mean, well, here's the thing. Oldie historically, their head game is a volatile thing. It's one extreme or the other. So for a long time, we didn't see that out of Oldie because they could keep it ice cold when they weren't pushed.
Right.
They were a dominating force in the sport for a very long time, and you would see them a whole season, and they were cool, calm, and collected. They didn't get pushed, and when they weren't pushed, they kept it on the track and they kept it clean. But the moment anything got competitive with them, it went to the extreme. And you really didn't see that often. You didn't see that often because they weren't pushed that often. It was those few championship games that they played. But you saw that.
Yeah.
You saw them going to the penalty box like crazy. Big, desperate, egregious hits. Talking back to so we're in a different area. Now that's fast forward 2 years. They haven't been in the WFTDA game. They haven't been training the WFTDA rules. They don't have a lot of the skaters that kept them very competitive. They have a lot of great skaters, but not to the level, no on the slide, no on the matrix. I mean, so now they're seeing a lot more competition than they did historically. And they're getting to that thing. Their passion for winning is at its highest.
Yes.
Their passion for winning is unbelievable. But once that threshold gets crossed for them, they go flying over it. Once that threshold, and we're just seeing the threshold getting crossed a lot more. There was a precedent for it before. It was just so unique.
Yeah.
Now they either have to prioritize bringing that head game back and getting ice cold and staying ice cold in the face of adversity, or they're going to see a lot more of these problems going forward.
What?
I think a lot of what I've seen from them too is that yesterday's game, I saw them trying on what looked like a shoe that didn't fit as well, trying a three-wall formations that I don't think have ever been their strength. When they're in 2-on-2, they're powerhouses, and there were a couple moments in this game against Treasure Valley where they either, I don't know if it was a decision or fell back into a more comfortable place of pairs on the track, and it's their wheelhouse. They're great at it.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they find more of that. They play great derby in pairs, which a lot of teams aren't doing.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of four-wall derby in WFTDA play right now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about track 3 real quick.
Well, we should follow up from yesterday because we missed out on one final score for you yesterday, and that was the Bridgetown Menace versus Drive-By game. Bridgetown ended up winning that game 234 to Drive-By's 125. But Bridgetown played the last game last night, playing the first game this morning on track 3. They're playing Deep Valley Belligerents right now. Don't know what the final score is. It's really close to the end of the game now. Last time we checked, it was 167 for Bridgetown, 68 for Deep Valley. So Bridgetown coming out super strong this morning and showing where they stand in this event. So good for them.
And we are here on track 1 in just a couple minutes. We've got some junior action. It's going to happen right here. It's the Rose City Rosebuds versus the I-5 Roller Girls. This is a classic matchup that we have seen lots in the past couple years, and as we've been saying on the podcast, and it bears repeating now, Junior Derby is getting very, very good. And I'm very excited about this game. The I-5 Roller Girls have been fantastic so far. The Rosebuds have been coming up in the world, and so lots of really great junior action. I'm glad that we're going to have this game on track 1. We'll be back after that. On track 2, we're about to see Texas versus Kansas City, a classic matchup that we have been watching this game since the beginning of roller derby, and a different game this year with Kansas City being not quite the team that they have been in the past, and Texas being a powerhouse. But as we were talking to Smarty Pants last night, Texas not taking this game lightly. They're going to go into it just as hard as they need to, especially because with the rankings being the way they are, with the calculator being they need to have as big a point spread as they can get so that they can move up as far as they can. And so I think that's something that we haven't been talking about a whole lot, is how big of a point spread do you need with a game like Texas versus Kansas City, or Rose City versus Kansas City, right? Like that was a 350 point spread. Is that enough to make them go up as far as they would like to? You know, like that's.
And it gets exponentially harder the higher up you are in rankings, right? I mean, it's that last mile. You're trying to go from 3 to 1. You know,
Right.
Most of the movement's going to happen in the 60s to 20s range.
It doesn't take much at that level to lose your advantage, and it takes everything to gain your advantage.
Right.
So it's a different game, and you're watching for different things. You're watching for the spread. You're watching gambling derby now. You're watching the spread and not the score. You're not watching for the win anymore.
Well, and like for so long, people have been like, "Oh man, I love this close game. I love a 2-point game." I personally love a super close, super tight, bam, bam, bam game. But when it comes to the rankings, you need to have a blowout. You have to plan to kick the hell out of the team that you're playing against. And for the spectators, for you guys out there in Viewerville, maybe not the most fun to watch, but if you're watching for strategy, if you're watching for, like this is what this team is doing versus what this team is doing, I don't know.
I think it's still, even when it's a blowout, the team that's losing, they're getting another team's A game, right? Yeah. They're not letting up, they're not playing easy, so everybody's learning on the track. And from a fan's perspective, I want to see somebody go 100% to the last second.
Careful though, because the difference between a player and a fan, right? A casual fan, super fan, players, that's a big difference. We know what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Not everybody is.
There's another side of that too, and that's burnout, and a lot of the reasons. So this model is based on based on the soccer model, and that's where games are not high-scoring games.
Right.
So they're always competitive. So you can base things on percentages because you're looking at 3-1. Here in Derby, the scoring is similar to more like a basketball type sport where you're looking at hundreds of points, but in basketball, you're only looking at the W. And the first thing they do when they get a substantial lead is they bench their starters because they need to rest, because they need to recover. They want to give the rest of their bench an opportunity to play, and that's something we're losing in this model of rankings. I'm not saying that I have an answer because I don't.
Right.
I don't have a better idea, but there is that thing where you have to play your top players as hard as possible the whole time, every game, and that might catch up with you at the end of the year. That might also catch up with you not developing the rest of your bench. So that's a cost-benefit analysis that when you're doing lineups and you're looking at rosters, that you're going to have to factor in when you get to the end of the season.
Well, and Smarty spoke to that last night too, in talking about Texas and how they're training to peak later in the year. So I think even though they're playing to the last second, their last jam gameplay in May versus in October is going to look really different.
It should.
And as we keep saying, we continue to say this all the time, that the sport is still very young.
Oh yeah.
We still have a lot of growth, and so these things will get worked out.
Oh yeah.
Right now, we have to deal with this point spread issue. It's part of the game. So we'll see what happens with Texas versus Kansas City when they take the track on track 2. Track 3, we have more junior action. Seattle Derby Brats versus Emerald City's Junior League. I'm going to go watch that game because I'm a big fan of Emerald City's junior team. And so we've got about 2 minutes left before I-5 take on the Rosebuds here at track 1. So Just Jake, thank you once again for joining us for the stats.
Pleasure.
And from the derbydeeds.com event desk here at the Big O, brought to you by Adam Wheels and the new Boom Wheels lineup. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned here at track 1 for junior action. Track 2's got Texas versus Kansas City. Lots to go around. Stay tuned all day. We're going to be here after every game on track 1.